This job aid is only a review of this publication and an introduction to how it's used in the National Cooperative Soil Survey. Everyone beginning to use the field book for describing and sampling soils should read the foreword, thumb through the book, and notice each of the major tab sections, such as Site, Profile, and Geomorph. Note each of the tabs behind each major section. Note how each section includes a brief description followed by classes, codes, abbreviations, and/or criteria as appropriate. Notice how sections and pages are numbered for reference. And finally, locate the blank example PED-ON description form and completed examples.
The field book for describing and sampling soils is intended to be a comprehensive field book that is durable and intended for field use. It is also a valuable internal reference for use in deciphering existing soil survey information and soil descriptions. Its audience is both government agencies as well as the private sector and academia. It is used widely across the U.S. and elsewhere in teaching soil pedology, soil survey, and other soil-related classes. Archaeology, engineering also use it widely. It follows its general current conventions of the National Cooperative Soil Survey, but it is not limited to any one sector. It is intended to be comprehensive. What that means is that any one particular user group may find that not everything in it is immediately or directly applicable to them, but it should be comprehensive so that it contains enough information that what you need should be able to be found there. We often have abbreviated content, but ample references and citations so that they can be used as road signs to direct people who want further detailed information to relevant supporting sources. All right, so in using the field book for describing soils, it's relatively straightforward. The first and most important thing is you've got to read the book. It has a good table of contents and it has an excellent index in the back that's intended to be comprehensive so that if you come to it and you don't know where to find something, which most often is the case, you can do a quick check and find out in the back what page number you need to go to find various subjects. It is cross-referenced repeatedly and extensively to aid that cause. The general layout of the document is intended to be something that follows a standard soil description form or a 232. These forms come in a variety of sizes and shapes, but it's the kind of form that just is wildly exciting in its presentation, but actually contains useful information. We've tried to sequence the content of the field book to follow the process that most people follow when they're in the field and they're observing and describing soils. So the content is broken out into roughly 10 different sections. It has 2 or 3 primary sections up front that get the most use. The first is called the site location, and each one of these major sections is separated by a colored tab so they're easy to find. The site section is information that pertains to everything that's about the sampling conditions, the location, parent materials, bedrock, vegetation patterns, all the ancillary and supporting information of the area of the site that's being described. It also contains information pertaining to soil water and surface stoniness. It's important to realize that in these lists of terms, many tables have long lists of terms which are the current recognized choices for that topic. So for example, for bedrock, if you go to a database, such as NRCS or some other database, you will find typically an alphabetical roster of options. Those rosters can be quite lengthy and to mere mortals rather unusable because they're so extensive. What we've attempted to do in the longer tables is to put in subheadings that are relevant to the topic so that if you have some idea about the material you're looking at or the data element that's being discussed, that you can look at and find a smaller subset that you can rationally get through to find the choice that's most appropriate for you. So for example, under bedrock kind, It's broken out into igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary subheadings. Each of those subheadings has a subset of alphabetized options. So if you know you have, for example, some kind of igneous rock, but you don't know what it is, you can go to a subset section and simply wander through those few limited options to more narrowly focus on the issue at hand. The geomorphology section is contained and addressed briefly in Section 1, but because it has such comprehensive lists of different landforms and content, rather than gum up the whole section, we just put the bare bones and the outline of it with examples up front, and the main content with all the various options is back in Section 3. So Section 2 is the meat and potatoes for most people, which is the actual profile description content. It's laid out again as to follow the general sequence that's followed by the standard 232 form, which is to say starting out with horizon observation method and depth, horizonation, color, features, texture, rock fragments, etc., etc. We made a real serious attempt to try to keep the content of the data form, the 232 form, to just 2 pages front and back for simplicity and logistics sakes. You may not use all of the various options available to you, and you may in fact want to create some of your own that are relevant to your area. There is a little bit of space on the form for doing that. The sequence of this does not follow the sequence in NRCS exactly, but the content is the same. We start out with one of the earliest columns in the description form is soil horizonation. That is the field that is oftentimes filled in initially or early on in the description process, but it should in fact be done dead last. One should take the time to record and observe what's in front of you and get that thoroughly documented, and at the end of the game do an interpretation of what does it all mean. We start with depth. Different units can be used, but most people are metric, so that is what we recommend and what we assume will be there. We have horizon description content that starts out with color. And a couple of quick comments. The field book uses language that is most widely recognized by the National Cooperative Soil Survey. There are different types of headings that are often used in NRCS that may not in fact be readily recognized by everyone who's outside NRCS. So what we've done is we've taken, for example, with color, we simply refer to it as color or soil color. It refers to the matrix color. In NRCS, it may have a different heading. We include that in the text of the field book, so you should be able to cross-reference it without any difficulty. We go from color and horizonation to concentrations, from there on to bed and void surface features, then on to soil texture and structure. These follow the conventional options, and all the choices that are available are listed in the field book for your use. One thing we might do here at this point is just use a quick and dirty example of how you might do soil structure. There are a number of graphics throughout the document pertinent to different topics, but for soil structure, we have a variety of graphics that refer to different types of grade, size, and type to help facilitate the proper identification and recording of those features. There is an additional component of Section 2, which is the profile description content that I'll mention and then go on to other sections, and that is there's a data entry form that's provided as an example. There's a blank one for use that can be copied, and there's some other copies that are available on the web, electronic versions. But it's a front and back page that contains most of the major descriptors for doing both site description and a profile description itself. Also provided along with that form is a prototype that shows an actual soil profile description, and particularly it contains a graphic down in the lower right hand corner that describes and presents the kind of information that you should be able to provide, which will help you focus your descriptive process in the field and also document those things that you observe that may not be readily obvious in the description itself. It also contains on the back side various types of forms of shorthand as well as longhand presentation of information that are used conventionally in soil survey descriptions. All right. The next section is one that's relatively short. I take that back, it's relatively long. It's the geomorphology section, and it is fairly extensive because it does contain all the various choice options for different types of landscapes, landforms, microfeatures, etc. The main point is, this is abbreviated up front, but in section 3 it's laid out in all its detail. The whole objective is to use that information to describe where you are in the landscape so that someone else can imagine where it is that you were and understand the context from which that soil profile is captured. The next section after that is one on soil taxonomy. It is a very brief section. It is not intended to be a comprehensive recitation of soil taxonomy. That's what the keys to soil taxonomy and soil taxonomy itself contain. This is just keeping some of the highlights that are used regularly by various folks in the writing soil profile descriptions. So go to the master documents for comprehensive information. The section after that is one on geology. It also is relatively short, but there's a lot of really good information in it. It has a variety of tables both on bedrock kind, but also a series of tables that describe and lay out different types of relationships of rock types. So for example, for igneous rocks, if you don't know much about igneous rocks, or you've forgotten or never did know, this chart arrays the different types of rock that are there so that you can readily understand how different crystal compositions and sizes relate to identifying the rock types that you have in front of you. There's also something for metamorphics and sedimentary rocks as well. There's a comprehensive table on mass wasting and the different types of landslides. There is geologic time information and miscellaneous information about lithostratigraphic units. Okay. The remaining sections are relatively abbreviated and simple. They are not intended to be comprehensive, but they do capture the kind of information that people regularly have to address when doing soil inventory work. There's a section on location, legal descriptions and that sort of thing, various forms. There is this miscellaneous section that deals with a potpourri of things. One is different types of size class estimations based on graphics. There is an extensive section on different types of common conversions between metric and English units for a variety of topics. And there's something in there about cartographic symbols, because even though we've gone digital and so much information, there's still a lot of conventional information that's available and indicated on topographic maps that is very valuable. Some of the final sections deal with brief stuff on soil sampling, and there's room at the back for adding new information as it becomes relevant.
The field book contains site information for a wide variety of users. Review the items and entries that are typically used and completed in your survey area. For more information and tips on describing soils, please see our online NCSS training materials.